As I successfully fight these political opponent lawsuits, all created and started by crooked Joe Biden and his group of radical left thugs, I realize how insignificant they are compared to the horror of what is going on with Israel and the Middle East, and the thousands of people who have so needlessly died in a war that should have never started, and the millions that could very easily follow, all due to the highly incompetent Biden administration and their policies of weakness and appeasement and of being just plain stupid. So let them keep suing me over bullshit in their hope of election interference, because that's the only way they think they can win. We're leading in the polls by massive numbers. And that's because our country has become disabled. We're a nation in decline. We are not going to let our country die. We will successfully fight it. We will make America great again, greater than ever before. Thank you.
That, folks, was an actual video that Donald Trump actually posted to his actually failing, shitty social media site, Truth Social. And I'm actually Boston Brian from the Midas Touch Network. And while the actual sane and competent leaders all over the global stage work together to fix serious issues, Donald Trump spent the day posting attack videos and actually comparing his legal troubles that he put himself into to the conflict in the Middle East. And even if you could look past his depravity and detachment from reality and his utter ignorance to compare whatever's going on in his life to the situation in the Middle East, the lies in this video are they're almost too numerous to count. Right off the bat, and as anybody that watches the Midas Touch Network knows, Joe Biden had zero to do with these indictments. Merrick Garland appointed special counsel Jack Smith, and prosecutors in pretty much every corner of this country have prosecuted Donald Trump. In the shameful, disgusting, and downright ridiculous way in which he blames Joe Biden for the situation in the Middle East is just absolutely insane. And for this sick sack of skin, this maniacal madman in a shitty Halloween costume, to think he has the power to control what goes on in the Middle East and what goes on in Ukraine is just beyond authoritarian, beyond fascistic, beyond anything you could possibly imagine that should come from the President of the United States of America. And you're probably asking yourself, just how insignificant does he feel his situation is in comparison to the conflict in the Middle East? Well, it took him about 5 minutes to put out another attack video, ranting and raving, complaining like a petulant child about the charges he's facing, the situations that he himself put himself into, I remind you, not mentioning one thing about the situation in the Middle East. And let me know in the comments if you pick up on or notice the racial undertones and dog whistling going on in this next video.
Anyone notice that the election rigging Biden administration never goes after the riggers, but only after those that want to catch and expose the rigging dogs? They are rigging dogs. They are horrible cheaters and liars. Massive information and 100% evidence will be made available during the corrupt trials started by our political opponent. Think of it, I got indicted by my political opponent. My political opponent indicted me because I challenged the election, which was rigged. We will never let 2020 happen again. Look at the results. Our country is being destroyed. We're going to make America great again, greater than ever before.
Yeah, so much for the insignificance of his situation in comparison to the millions of civilians that have been affected by the tragic situations going on in Ukraine and the Middle East. And here's the sweaty, mangled mess of a man stomping his feet and crying like a little baby because his plan of announcing his run for president early in order to control the judicial system isn't working.
Highly political Biden lawsuits and indictments shouldn't be allowed to start until after the election is over. Who would ever think a thing like this would be allowed to start? We actually have one judge that wants the lawsuit to start the day before Super Tuesday. These are corrupt people. Our founding fathers are looking down at Biden with scorn right now. They're looking down on Biden and this administration with disbelief.
Put it this way, Chief. If the Founding Fathers are really looking down on us in disbelief, it's probably because they can see whatever's going on with that rat nest on your head. And they're wondering why the hell anybody in 2023 would be allowed to walk around looking like that. And for a guy that wants us to believe he actually gives one shit about this country, the way he actually talks about it makes me think the absolute opposite. Recently, he's been on this anti-Washington, D.C. kick where he just makes up the most ludicrous, the most ridiculous things he could possibly think of, the most disparaging things he could possibly say about this nation's capital, and he says them out loud. So I just want to refresh your memory a little bit before I play the clip that he posted. Here's Donald Trump in New Hampshire last week, calling Washington, D.C. a shithouse.
And Washington, D.C., our capital, Washington, D.C. has become a dirty, crime-ridden death trap that must be taken over and properly run with kid gloves and beautiful and stack it with money. What a horrible, dirty roads. I see roads that haven't been cleaned in 6 months. You'd see containers of McDonald's where the container is 6 months old. Cars have been riding on it. Water's been raining on it. Well, our capital is the opposite of tippy-top. It's a shithouse.
It's honestly just some really sick stuff, and here's just his most recent post disparaging the nation's capital.
Washington, D.C., our once beautiful capital, has become a dirty, crime-ridden death trap that must be taken over and properly run by the federal government. Right now, it is probably the most unsafe capital city anywhere in the world. With this in mind, there is no way I can get a fair trial in a Biden election interference indictment. This was a Biden indictment. Biden, my political opponent, indicted me because I challenged the election and other ridiculous reasons. With this in mind, there is no way I can get a fair trial on a Biden election interference indictment in Washington, D.C.
It's just remarkable to me that anybody listening to that, even the most non-politically involved person, even the most uneducated person, listening to that could say to themselves, yep, that's a guy that cares about his country right there. And when he talks about totally redoing and cleaning up D.C., it scares the shit out of me, knowing what his apartments and his airplanes look like. Next thing you know, the Washington Monument's going to be gold-plated, and the Lincoln Memorial is going to have a gold-plated Diet Coke in his hand. And as somebody that loves history and studies World War II, there's just no way I could help but think of the plans that Hitler and Albert Speer had for Berlin, trying to turn it into the world's capital. They called it the Welthauptstadt Germania. I mean, I can just see Donald Trump sitting there looking over a model of what he wants and what he thinks Washington, D.C. should look like in his messed up mind. And I can guarantee, just like Hitler, all the buildings would be ridiculously oversized and have the most hideous architecture you could possibly think of. And finally, here's the lunatic trying to say that the lawsuit in Colorado succeeds, which would remove him from the ballot under the 14th Amendment, that this country basically turns into a dictatorship and that the American people, the American citizens, have had their last free vote ever.
A fake trial is currently taking place to try and illegally remove my name from the ballot. I often say that 2024 will be the most important election in the history of our country. The reason for that, and that statement, is that our country is being destroyed by people who have no idea what they're doing, or even worse, they may very well have an idea. They may hate our country. But it may also be the last election we ever have. If this election doesn't work, if this election is rigged and stolen, if bad things happen, our country will not survive. If Crooked Joe and the Democrats get away with removing my name from the ballot, then there will never be a free election in America again. We will have become a dictatorship where your president is chosen for you. You will no longer have a vote, or certainly won't have a meaningful vote. And you could say, frankly, that that has already begun.
So let's juxtapose the fear-mongering from Donald Trump and the petulant third-grade feet-stomping with what President Biden is saying and doing at the moment. He posted this. Yesterday saw the largest delivery of life-saving humanitarian assistance into Gaza so far, and more trucks are being cleared to enter today. But many more are needed. I'm not done pushing for more aid and will continue to support safe passage for Gaza civilians seeking safety. And then President Biden tweeted this. Today, I again spoke with His Majesty King Abdullah of Jordan to deepen our cooperation with Arab partners and continue to address the humanitarian situation of Palestinian civilians in Gaza. Biden then goes on to say, our national security depends on both supporting Israel to combat terrorism and alleviating the sufferings of civilians in Gaza. That's why I requested a security package from Congress that allows us to honor both humanitarian and defense aid. Durable peace depends on it. These are the things that a president should be talking about. This is how a president speaks. This is how a president handles a crisis, a humanitarian crisis in the Middle East. The stuff that Donald Trump is posting is just ridiculous nonsense made to save his own ass, to try to sway anybody that he possibly can to believe the bullshit that's coming out of his mouth. Luckily, because you're here watching the Midas Touch Network, that's probably not going to happen to you, and you know better than to listen to anything that guy says. But let's continue to be vigilant. I know some of you guys are sick of hearing this guy, sick of seeing this guy, but it's very important to hear what he has to say. It's very important to know what we need to combat, what we need to look out for. So stay right here at the Midas Touch Network. We're going to continue to call this shit out day by day, hour by hour, with some of the best creators, some of the best hosts on the internet today. So I appreciate you guys being here. I appreciate you guys watching. If you like what I have to say, if you like what's in the video, make sure you hit the like button. We're on our way to 2 million subscribers, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. It's free. If you have any questions, anything you want to talk about, leave it in the comments. Tell them Boston Brian sent you. If you're looking for more content like this and would like to support independent creators like myself, you can follow me at patreon.com/BostonBrian. You can also go to the Midas Touch Patreon at patreon.com/MidasTouch. It's probably the easiest and most direct way to help produce content like this. So until the next time, keep calling this stuff out, keep fighting for democracy, and keep kicking ass. I'm Boston Brian. Have a great night.